Have you ever been told, don't judge others? Maybe even preach that judgment is bad, that it's better to just accept everyone, no questions asked. But here's a strange truth. Not judging at all can be dangerous, because when you don't learn how to judge well, you lose something critical, your ability to make good decisions. Protect yourself and understand the world clearly. So what if the real problem isn't judging, but bad judgment? Let me tell you a quick story. I had a friend who kept saying, I don't want to judge people anymore. And at first, it seemed like a kind and open way to live. But then, this friend started making some really bad calls, trusting the wrong people, missing red flags, and even losing money. Not because they were judgmental, but because they didn't know how to judge. Sound familiar? Maybe you felt the same. You're told to be kind, don't jump to conclusions. But then when someone hurts you or you make a mistake, you wonder, how do I actually figure out who or what to trust? It's a tough balance. We want to avoid being harsh or unfair, but at the same time, we need to protect ourselves and make smart choices. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think good judgment means being quick to judge others, to label or to criticize. And not judging means avoiding all evaluation and just letting things slide. But Aristotle, one of the greatest thinkers on how we live well, saw it differently. He believed that judgment itself is necessary. What's dangerous is poor judgment. Not judging is like refusing to use a compass because you're afraid of getting lost. Sure, you won't pick the wrong direction, but you also won't find the right way. Think about it. If you don't judge at all, how do you decide who to trust, which job to take, when to speak up or stay silent? You end up confused, passive, and vulnerable. The problem isn't judgment, it's bad judgment, the kind that's impulsive, biased, or uninformed. So how do we learn to judge well? How do we develop what Aristotle calls phronesis, practical wisdom? Aristotle said this about judgment. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. What does that mean? It means good judgment starts with the ability to pause and consider before deciding. You don't have to immediately say yes or no. You listen, think, weigh options, and then choose. It's like being a detective, not a judge. You gather clues, question assumptions, and then make a careful decision. Imagine you're hiring someone. You meet a candidate who seems nervous and awkward. You could instantly dismiss them as not good enough. But what if you pause and think? Maybe nerves don't tell the full story. Maybe they have strong skills that just need a chance to shine. That pause, that thoughtfulness, that's the core of good judgment. It's not snap decisions or harsh labels. Aristotle also said, excellence is an art won by training and habituation. Good judgment isn't something you're born with. It's something you build by practice, by making decisions, reflecting on what worked and what didn't, and learning from experience. So it's okay to mess up sometimes. Every bad call is a chance to get better. Good judgment isn't about being right all the time. It's about being thoughtful, deliberate, and willing to learn. Aristotle once said something that might surprise you. The virtue of justice consists in moderation as regulated by wisdom. Justice isn't about being blindly fair or soft. It's about balance, judging fairly and wisely. What does that mean for judgment? It means good judgment requires moderation, not swinging from one extreme to another. You don't judge harshly every little thing, but you also don't ignore serious problems. Think about social media for a second. How often do we see people swinging between extremes, either canceling someone instantly or refusing to hold anyone accountable at all? Here's a question. How often do you pause before reacting to something you see online? Or do you scroll, get triggered, and immediately decide someone's bad or wrong? That's poor judgment. It's impulsive and extreme. Aristotle's call for moderation asks us to step back and ask, is this the full story? Am I overreacting? Let's bring this closer to home. Imagine your coworker misses an important deadline. Your first reaction might be frustration or anger, but good judgment asks you to moderate that emotion. Maybe your coworker had a crisis at home. Maybe they're usually reliable, but this time struggled. Judging with moderation means you don't rush to label someone as lazy or unprofessional. You look for the full picture before deciding. And why does Aristotle link this moderation to wisdom? Because wisdom gives you the knowledge and experience to know what is fair and reasonable in any situation. What if I told you that the worst mistakes in life come not from judging too much, but from judging too little or too fast? It's tempting to think that staying neutral and avoiding judgment is safest. But Aristotle shows us that without wisdom and moderation, judgment becomes either reckless or absent, and both can be harmful. So the real skill is finding that middle ground, judging neither too harshly nor too loosely. Now here's another gem from Aristotle. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. You might be wondering, how does knowing myself help me judge others? It's simple. Good judgment starts inward. If you don't understand your own biases, emotions, and habits, you'll judge others based on assumptions, not reality. Think of a time you misunderstood someone, maybe because you projected your own fears or frustrations onto them. That's a failure in judgment, rooted in a lack of self-awareness. Self-knowledge lets you spot when your judgment is clouded. Maybe you dislike someone not because they're wrong, but because they remind you of someone you had a bad experience with. Or maybe you're too quick to forgive because you hate conflict. Aristotle believed that self-knowledge trains you to check yourself before you jump to conclusions. Here's a clear example. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone challenges your idea. If you don't know yourself well, you might take it personally, react defensively, and dismiss their point immediately. But if you're self-aware, you pause. You recognize your defensive feelings aren't about the idea. They about your own fear of being wrong or rejected. That pause changes everything. It opens space for better judgment, for listening carefully, evaluating the argument fairly, and responding thoughtfully. So good judgment is not just about the outside world. It's about managing your own mind first. Here is a quick question for you. When was the last time you really checked your feelings before deciding someone or something was good or bad? If you haven't done that recently, you might be judging on autopilot and missing the bigger picture. To sum it up in Aristotle's words, the educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead. Good judgment wakes you up. It brings you alive to reality, to nuance, and to truth, instead of blind reaction. Here is a truth that is hard to face. When we don't develop good judgment, real people get hurt. Not just in big, obvious ways, but in small, everyday moments that add up. Think about a family torn apart. by misunderstandings, or a friendship lost because someone judged too quickly without looking deeper, or a workplace where poor decisions wreck careers and trust. Aristotle captured this cost perfectly. The greatest mistakes are made when people rush without thinking or hesitate when action is needed. When judgment fails, lives become full of regret, people hurt, opportunities missed, trust broken. And what's worse, the pain often comes from not judging enough, from refusing to face hard truths, because we fear being judgmental. This isn't about being cruel or harsh. It's about caring enough to see clearly, decide well, and act wisely. Imagine if your best friend never spoke up when you were heading down a bad path, or a leader who never questions wrong ideas because they want to avoid conflict. That's silence. That's the cost of poor judgment. So the question isn't, should I judge? It's, how do I learn to judge well so that I protect, grow, and connect with others honestly? Here are 3 core truths from Aristotle that we've unpacked. 1. Good judgment starts with thoughtfulness, pausing to consider, not rushing to conclusions. 2. It requires moderation, avoiding extremes of harshness or passivity, finding balance through wisdom. 3. And it begins with knowing yourself, being aware of your own biases and emotions before judging others. If you take nothing else from this, here's one simple step you can try today. Before you make a judgment, whether about a person, a situation, or even yourself, pause. Ask, what don't I know? What might I be missing? That moment of pause is where good judgment begins. Aristotle said it best. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, so be curious about your own mind. Question your first reactions, because good judgment doesn't just make your decisions better, it makes your life better. Now I want to hear from you. What's one situation where you rushed to judge and wish you hadn't? Or one where good judgment saved you? Share your story in the comments. If you found this helpful, hit like. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe if you want to keep learning with me. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.